into despair. Well, a CBS News New York Times national telephone poll conducted this week asked those questions. You may find some of the answers surprising. When we asked, for example, about continuing the shuttle program, an overwhelming majority, 80%, said yes. This comment, typical of the answers.
It's a tragedy what happened, but I think that technology has to go forward.
Something like this should not stop space travel. Airline crashes don't stop people from traveling.
It's an experiment, and things can go wrong, and that's how they learn.
To underline just how strong support is now running, when we asked would people be willing to pay more taxes to keep the shuttle flying, more people said yes than said no. Those figures could vary 3 points either way. Some of that support apparently grows out of the tragedy.
If we don't go up again, then they died for no reason.
I think we should find a way to spend more money, actually.
I think we're spending too much, far too much.
Well, I think it's probably done it one time too many.
While people were clearly moved by the accident, most people concluded it was bound to happen sooner or later.
We've had 25 successes, and it's bound to happen.
You're asking a lot of equipment.
A large majority also favors sending civilians like Teacher McAuliffe on such missions.
The 21st century is going to call for a lot of civilians to be in space, and I think the best time to start is right away.
As for young people, most of the very young seemed unaffected. About a third of parents with children 5 to 8 years old said their children were upset, but 70% noticed no impact. Child psychiatrist J. Gerald Young told us today what really helps a child in sorting out such things is understanding how parents feel.
The children need a model not only for the emotion, but how to articulate it and then confine it.
Understandably, older age groups, those aged 9 to 17, knew much more about the accident. 81% told us they had seen a lot about it on TV, and 84% said they were upset. But by the same overwhelming percentage, they said the program should continue, and most said they would still like to travel in space if they got the chance.
I thought that it was a great stepping stone into what can be a space shuttle mission that can carry people like you and me, normal everyday people, into space.
By the way, we interviewed 1,120 adults and 224 young people. Krista McAuliffe's family said thank you today for the thoughts and prayers of a nation. In a short statement, the family said, "It is our hope that Krista's spirit will remain alive through those she inspired." If the scene today at the Johnson Space Center was any indication, the spirits of all the Challenger astronauts are very much alive. Harry Smith reports.
Young and old, they came here today to look, to wonder, to remember. The entrance to the Johnson Space Center in Houston has become the focal point for the emotions of an entire nation.
You realize that it's not just this part of the country or just America. It's the whole world that feels the loss.
The flowers from a karate club, from the King of Jordan. This has become every man's memorial, where NASA workers, tourists, townspeople, and finally an astronaut's family came and knew their grief was shared.
Gives me support and consolation.
It gives a very warm feeling that there's so many people that cares, and you know, and just to see that simply, it makes it a little easier to bear, a little.
For those who hurt the most, a larger shoulder to lean on. Amidst the sadness, support. Harry Smith, CBS News, Johnson Space Center, Houston.
And one other note, Soviet map makers who are making surface maps of the planet Venus announced today that they would name 2 of the craters on Venus for Krista McAuliffe and Judith Resnick, the 2 women who died in the space disaster.
New trade talks in Tripoli. Libyan officials invited the Western press into the chamber to see businessmen from Belgium and Luxembourg making hay, while American companies are barred from competing.
Belgium, it's a little country. We need to export.
And that includes manpower. The Libyans are recruiting British, Dutch, and Norwegian oil workers for jobs some Americans abandoned today.
I'm not happy about it. In fact, I'm mad as hell about it. But I'm going back to the States. I'm going to look for a job. And if I don't find a job, I'm going back to Libya.
The big American oil companies are finding loopholes in the president's order that may permit them and Libya to continue profiting from Libyan oil. At worst, the oil companies will protect their assets here until the storm blows over.
If Americans want to come back to Libya, authorities at Tripoli Airport will not stamp a visa into an American passport and leave any permanent record of their arrival here. You can still pay for a hotel room with U.S. dollars and buy a ticket out of Libya to Western Europe or elsewhere using any one of a number of well-known American credit cards.
Libya believes it is facing down a superpower 100 times its size. America has so far played to Gaddafi's strongest suit, his flair for melodrama and the absurd. Doug Tennell, CBS News, Tripoli.
Pope John Paul began his tour of India today. He laid a wreath at the memorial to Mahatma Gandhi in New Delhi, first taking off his shoes in traditional Hindu style. Later, he celebrated Mass before 25,000 Indian Catholics at a tightly guarded stadium. Some militant Hindus have protested the Pope's pastoral visit to a country where there are about 600 million Hindus, only 13 million Catholics. A military parade today so his troops could guard the capital, which is now under a state of siege. Richard Schlesinger reports on the situation in Port-au-Prince.
Day one of President Jean-Claude Duvalier's state of siege. Elite policemen in Port-au-Prince tried to force shopkeepers to open their stores. Normally, Saturday is a heavy shopping day. Today, most of the stores in the central business district of the capital were shut. Overnight, stores were looted and today had armed guards posted outside. There are reports 5 people were killed, but doctors at the local hospital said they are under orders not to talk. Despite the demonstrations which have racked this country for more than 2 months, the government does not feel it is in jeopardy.
It doesn't have a lot of meanings because the government has a majority that are with the president, Jean-Claude.
But on the streets of Port-au-Prince, some people tell a different story. One man would only talk to us away from the troops, and only if we did not photograph him.
The Haitian people are known to be very spiritual, docile people, but there comes a point where they cannot accept things as they are anymore.
The government says during the state of siege, Haitians will still have the right to hold political demonstrations as long as they remain within the law, according to a government spokesman. And President Duvalier has demonstrated he can mount a very effective show of force if he feels he has to. And the word from the presidential palace is Duvalier is here to stay.
I understand that he is president for life.
Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Port-au-Prince.
Democratic Congressman John Murtha of Pennsylvania will join the Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Richard Lugar as co-chairman of the 19-member delegation that will go to the Philippines next week to observe the presidential elections there. That word today from the White House, and as it was being made, Lugar said, "Our role is to support the democratic process." There was a denial today of an odd rumor that's been circulating in the Philippines, and Bill Redeker has more on that.
For the past couple of weeks, rumors have persisted that Imelda Marcos, the politically ambitious wife of the president, might replace him on the ballot at the 11th hour. But today, at the presidential palace, journalists were told to ignore such speculation.
This story, or shift of presidential candidates, is completely false.
Marcos said he had never seen such a dirty campaign, but pledged the cooperation of the Army should he lose and have to vacate the presidency.
The entire armed forces will support a legitimately elected president, whoever he may be.
But the leadership of the military is extremely loyal to Marcos, and many doubt that his generals would permit a change. Marcos' opponent, Corazon Aquino, continued to draw massive crowds today. She warned the president that should he defraud her of victory, Filipinos won't stand for it.
I hate to think of what will happen because a frustrated and an angry people might resort to violence.
As the campaign enters its final days, the question of what will happen after the polls close seems to have become the main issue. Aquino says that if Marcos rigs the election, she will lead peaceful demonstrations. Those demonstrations could turn violent. CBS News has learned that both moderate and radical political activists here have made contingency plans that include the possible use of armed force. Bill Redeker, CBS News, Manila.
The Conservative Political Action Conference wound up its convention in Washington today. The Conservatives disagreed about a few things, such as presidential candidates, but they all joined in cheering a new hero of the right, Joseph Savimbi, who is in Washington lobbying for aid for his guerrillas against the government of Angola. Deborah Potter has the story.
They stood and they shouted their support for Savimbi, the Angolan rebel leader who's become the darling of the American conservative movement.
And I pay you my tribute. I follow you and pray for you and thank God for you.
The debate over aiding Savimbi's rebels has been called an ideological Super Bowl. And last night's dinner had all the trappings of the big game. From the marching band to the cheering section, roaring approval when Savimbi asked for help.
Southern Africa will go Moscow. Unless we resist, unless we stop them in Angola.
The conservatives have made support for Savimbi a political litmus test, and this was a chance for would-be Republican candidates to show they're on the team.
We support the free people of Angola who are fighting for liberty and independence. Your cause is our cause.
It is time and past time that we Americans should organize ourselves to give real assistance to Jonas Savimbi. Real assistance means real weapons.
Some administration officials wish the right wing would pipe down. The president wants to send Savimbi some covert aid, but as one official here put it, the more they shout about it, the harder it is for us to do anything. Deborah Potter, CBS News, the State Department.
I think that it's eminently clear.
Almost 5%, domestic spending by more than 4%. Those cuts take effect March 1st. The president's also preparing the fiscal 1987 budget that he will send to Congress on Wednesday. And in his weekly radio broadcast today, Mr. Reagan again promised no Social Security cuts, no new taxes, and what he called modest but steady growth in defense spending. Once again today, striking meat packers at the Hormel Company plant in Austin, Minnesota tried to stop their replacements from going to work. Police say that the strikers vandalized cars and blocked roads leading to the plant. One person was arrested. Hormel says that the plant operated on a limited basis as some replacement workers stayed away because of the demonstrations. For years, the federal government and various state and local agencies have grappled with the problem of who cares for a child when authorities decide its parents cannot or will not. Some such children are put under supervision of various agencies, but most of the time, federal or state governments simply pay so-called foster parents to take care of them. Lately, critics have begun to ask, is there a better way? And this week, Betty Ann Bowser has been looking into that.
Diane Tomlinson is 19 and has been in foster care all of her life, waiting for a family to adopt her.
I'm tired of going from home to home to home, you know, and trying to get used to this family, and then you got to leave again and try to...
Now she has a family of her own. Her son Jerome, like his mother, is in foster care. Together, Diane and Jerome cost the state of New York more than $40,000 a year. Nationwide, nearly 300,000 children are in foster care at an annual cost of nearly $3 billion. Critics claim that much of that money could be better spent on keeping kids out of foster care.
If we put the resources into trying to preserve a family structure, we'd do better for the kids, would do better for the families, and would do better for taxpayers.
The federal government requires states to provide preventive services, including housing, daycare, help in the home, whatever can reasonably be done to keep poor families facing the prospect of foster care together. But getting preventive services can mean wading through an ocean of red tape. In New York City alone, nearly half of those who qualify for preventive services can't get them.
Mom.
4-year-old Saida Ocampo would probably be in a foster home today if her mother had not sued the city and state to get preventive services. Last year, Stephanie Ocampo's right leg had to be amputated. When she asked the city for help in caring for Saida, she was told the little girl belonged in foster care. She continued to demand and finally got help at home.
The children don't ask to be brought here. We bring them here, so we owe them a certain amount.
of fulfillment.
Make a toy with us?
Saida spends every day at a community-based daycare center where poor, abused, and homeless children mix with children of the wealthy. There, poor families receive counseling, housing assistance, food, and education.
I think that it's eminently clear that you don't help parents learn to be parents by taking their children away.
Experts agree foster care can be damaging to children.
The effects are devastating. There are several studies show that kids develop serious psychological problems that they didn't have before they came into foster care because of the impermanence of that kind of life.
People who administer the foster care system admit it has problems.
And that means taking a national bureaucracy and just making it simple. If I've been in the field 18 years and don't understand all the regulations and all the nuances of this system, then a family in desperate trouble isn't going to easily know where and how to get help.
But change comes slowly to a national bureaucracy. Meanwhile, Stephanie and Saida Ocampo are trying very hard not to fall through the cracks.
Hold on.
Betty Ann Bowser, CBS News, New York.
It wasn't long till something went wrong.
Had to entertain themselves when work was done, which probably explains why sitting around the campfire, eating and telling lies became such a favorite cowboy pastime. Well, no one is quite sure how that evolved into poetry, but apparently it did. And this week in Nevada, Nadine Berger got an earful.
The love affair between America and the cowboy is a century old. This cowboy, Niall Henderson, wants the romance to continue.
Cowboys got class. We're simple and proud. Independent and quiet, we stand out in the crowd. So don't be too quick to put all us cowboys down, because every once in a while, we all get to town.
Henderson and 150 other cowboys write poetry about life on the range. And this weekend, they brought their rhyming diaries to Elko, Nevada, home of the gathering of cowboy poets. PhDs and ranch hands alike took in American folklore and did away with some myths.
Cowboys and poetry do go together.
How come you write cowboy poetry?
How come you breathe?
Well, it's a way you can express yourself.
A way of putting down history for the people that follow us.
I guess I'd try to rope a calf and still announce the show.
They came with poems about cow punching and bronco busting, about old buckaroos and new urban cowboys, and they were at home.
There's a closeness here that I don't feel anywhere else. We people of the ranches are in a minority now.
The cowboy persona is crucial to the American self-image.
And many think a symbol of what's still right and true about America.
The lifestyle that I have and other cowboys have, you see life in a different set of eyes.
He hopes his children think so, too.
And he looks at Dad. I think back a few years to when I was a boy. My dad bought me a horse instead of a toy. And he taught me something when I got bucked down. Not to lay there and whimper, but get up off the ground. So when trouble springs up every once in a while, I think back to my dad and I quietly smile. I don't turn my back or run off to hide. I just get up off the ground, and I finish the ride.
Nadine Berger, CBS News, Elko, Nevada.
Well, that's the news. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, New York.
Of the Daily Number and the Big Four number for Saturday, February 1st, 1986. First, the Daily Number. Dump the balls and mix them, please. Each of our machines contains 10 balls numbered 0 through 9. We'll draw one digit from each machine. Tonight's senior citizen witness is William Simpson. Now draw the first digit, please. 8, the second digit. 4, the third digit. 6, and there you have today's Daily Number. That's 846. Now the Big Four number. Dump the balls and mix them, please. Tonight's lottery security official is Bob Griffith. Now draw the first digit, please. 7, the second digit. 7, the third digit. 3, the fourth digit. 5, and there you have it, Saturday's Big Four number. That's 7735. Again, today's Daily Number, 846. Saturday's Big Four number, 7735. The numbers selected are unofficial until they are validated.